Hello, friends and fellow YouTubers. This is Sudarshan Iyer, also known as Sam Iyer. I'm back. I am back with a new video. Now, I know it's been 2 years since I made my last video, but it's just been crazy. The last 2 years, I was going through my Sade Sati and the first phase of Sade Sati, and there was a lot of ups and downs. I'm gonna go ahead and share it with what I thought. I should bring that authentic experience to you guys and tell you that what happens when there is a Sade Sati. So yeah, it's gonna be a personal experience analysis. I'm gonna talk more about what Sade Sati is, what Saturn is, why it gives these impacts, and so on and so forth. So let's start. So the first thing first, I've heard a lot of people who don't believe in astrology or who are skeptics, natural skeptics, or people who don't want to believe in anything that is unprovable, untouchable, that Sade Sati is a myth or Sade Sati only affects people who believe in astrology, who believe in Sade Sati. There are people like Bill Gates, there are people like Donald Trump, there are people like, Brad Pitt, and so on and so forth. There are rich people who don't believe in God or Hindu God or don't do any pujas. They don't get they don't get affected. Or Warren Buffett, for instance, right? But that's not true. Everyone gets affected by Sade Sati, and we'll just go over a few things, few experiences, and we'll see how it goes. It does not have anything to do with uh, with your belief in astrology, with your belief in Sade Sati. When there's a bad time, if you go back and if you know how to look at your chart, you can go back and look at your chart, and you will see that there is a Sade Sati going on in your chart, or there's something else going on in your chart as well. Having said that, not every single sadhisati is always going to be bad. There are certain sadhisatis which have significant impacts in the way you function and in the way your work goes around and stuff like that based on your original chart. But for the large part, I would say during the sadhisati, your entire horoscope or your natal chart is blocked. And I'll tell you when it gets more impact and when it's not, when it's less impact as well. So, well, let's talk about it. So first things first, it's important to understand what is Sade Sati, right? So there are three things involved in Sade Sati. Number one is Saturn. It's a planet Saturn that is going to go over the moon. So we the two planets that we're going to talk about is the moon and the Saturn. And when it goes over the moon, what it means is it's 12th house from the moon, it's on the moon, and it's going to be on the second house of the moon. So that is basically the Sadhisati. Now, some people also take Sadhisati from the ascendant. The impact is a little bit different. I have experienced both, and I can honestly, I can tell you what it entails and how it goes. So let's, without further ado, it'll start. So first things first, as you can see it on the screen, Saturn. So Saturn is a natural karaka of karma. So karma is activity. It's not how it's only showcased in the Western world, like karma's a bitch and so on and so forth. But karma in and itself is an activity. It's karma. And then there are three different types of karma. Even the result of that karma is also part of the karma as per the modern definition. So there is a sanchit karma, which is a result of which is a stored. It's a kind of pending karma, which is stored in it. So that's basically the result. And then there is kriyaman karma, which is an activity. You do an activity. You're doing any activity. That is basically it. So that's what it's. Now, Saturn is a natural karaka of karma. Saturn is also so karma primarily in modern world, it's career, right? In the old age, the karma would mean different things. So for instance, if you are a student, it would be an education. If you are a farmer, it would be farming in the field and so on and so forth. So it's career as well. Next is sickness. So Saturn is oftentimes, you can also associate it with sickness, some kind of illness as well. Although I can say every single planet is associated with some kind of disease, but Saturn in general is a different kind of sickness that we were talking about. It's something that's in the core and stays for a long time. Next is poverty. Saturn is an underprivileged. Remember, he was discarded by his own father, Surya or sun, and because he was discarded, the reason he was discarded is because the way he carried himself. So he is always looking for the people who are downtrodden, who are underprivileged, so also people who are poor. So that's one. It's also a karaka for discipline. So someone who has a very disciplined, like some disciplined lifestyle, they would associate themselves with Saturn. It's also karaka for hard work, ups and downs. It's karaka for basement. If you live in a foreign country, you know what a basement is. Um, it's a house, it's a room or a kind of space under the house where you might sometimes stay or live as well. There is legal issues. Saturn is it gets exalted in the sign of Libra, and it shows legal issues as well if it's afflicted. It also shows oil and gas. Again, it's an underground activities. Any spirituality, because it's a karaka for the 12th and the 8th house as well. So it is a karaka for spirituality. Again, when I say spirituality, you may be an atheist, or you may be a third kind of a different dimension kind of believer who believes that, okay, I don't believe in God, but I do believe in spirituality. I do believe spirits are true, and so on and so forth. It also talks about leadership of the underprivileged population. So a lot of times in the villages, you would see the serpent or a leader of the village or of a particular group of set of people who are underprivileged, or even in factories there's unions, so union leaders are also represented by Saturn, because they fight for the rights of the people who are underprivileged, or who don't have the who are not as privileged as the people who are at the top. It also is harsh planet, so it does reflect harshness, dryness. It's a cold planet as well, and many more things. There are more things I can keep adding on, but yeah, that's pretty much it. It should give you a gist of understanding as to what it basically means. Next is because it's moving through the 12th house, we also need to understand what is the 12th house. That's how the Sade Sati starts. So I'm gonna show you in a second how it works. But the 12th house is the natural house of unknown places. It's behind your head, right? So that is basically your 12th house. Or you can even say, now it's a different way to look at it. The 12th house is basically your feet, like it's your feet, but it's also something that you don't know. It's something that you can't see. So if some people can also relate it to this way. Now the chart, the way the Indian charts are made, it's just to understand, for you to know that, okay, this is how it is, but it's not, it doesn't necessarily, you can't really draw a person over there. So it is, that's why it is, but it causes a little bit confusion. But it is unknown places, it's foreign locations. So a lot of times you may see that, Saturn is associated with the foreign country. It takes you away from your homeland. It's a karaka for separation, right? So as well. So that's one. Next is losses. Because it's a karaka for sixth and the 12th house. Again, it's losses, isolation. It separates you from unknown places. If you go to unknown place, if you go to a foreign place, often you're isolated and you're staying alone or living with as compared to what you were living before. It also represents prison or jail, as you might call it. There's hospitals, charitable institutions, subconscious mind, bedroom pleasures, fantasies. So there's some portion which shows materialistic part, and most part it is uh, it is something that is unknown, and it's also spiritual house as well. Charitable institution, for instance, hospital. It's like you're serving someone. Next is moon. So because it goes over the moon, we've talked about Saturn, we've talked about the 12th house. Now we're going to talk about the moon. The moon is a natural karaka of mother, right? It's Ma. It's also motherland because it's fourth house. It's the natural karaka of the fourth house. It's also mental peace because, basically you want your moon to be in a decent position so you can have that mental peace. Um, it is also karaka for happiness because, again, the fourth house is happiness. It's also karaka for traveling, frequent changes. If there's a lot of changes in your life, it's probably because moon somehow affects your Jupiter or Saturn. It's also karaka for unnecessary blame, water, mood swings, food, females, and elder sisters. So it's karaka for all of that. and much more. Like I said, I mean, these planets have, over a period of time, they've evolved and new meanings have been attached to them based on the experiences that we've had, and that's how it usually goes. Now, the next, so I'm sorry about that. I don't know what exactly happened. I think the video stopped recording for some reason. So regardless, since we are on the topic, I'm just going to continue with the audio only. But yeah, what it basically does is, so as you can see on the screen, when Saturn transits over the moon, that's when the Sade Sati is considered. So the easiest way to look at it is if you can rotate your moon sign into the center, and you can see where and see if there is a Saturn transit going on over the moon, one house before the moon or after the moon. It is considered to be a Sade Sati. Now, why we call Sade Sati? Because Saturn transits 2.5 years in one sign. So 12th house, it's going to travel, use 12, 2.5, and then it's going to be 2.5 over the moon, and then it's going to be 2.5 after the moon. So all this 2.5 years in total, they become 7.5 years in Hindi, or in India we call it Sade Sati, and 7.5 year period of Saturn transiting over the moon. Now, some people also consider it from the ascendant, which is not wrong. It does have some kind of effect on it as well, but I've seen primarily it has a significant impact mentally on your moon, and if you're broken mentally, it takes a big toll on you as well. Now, I will tell you what happens in Sade Sati. So first, I'll just give you a brief idea. So in the first phase of Sade Sati, depending on what number of Sade Sati are you in. So Sade Sati can usually come in 3 times in a person's life. It can even go up to 4 times in a very rare cases, but because it takes about 27.5 years for it to transit over to the position of 12th house from your moon or from itself, so it will take that period. So 30 years is first times, 30 years the second time means which you're going to be somewhere about under 60 or 60, and the third is going to be 90. So the first phase is within the first 30 years. Second phase is going to be from 30 to 60 years, somewhere in between there, and the third phase is going to be somewhere from the 60 to 90 years. So that's how the Sade Sati is. Now, what happens to first phase? Now, as you can see, as I've said it before, the Sade Sati in the 12th house. What is the 12th house? We already discussed that in the last section. So the 12th house is isolation. It's a separation from your loved one. It's a little bit, it's charitable institution, hospitals. So depending on what you're going through, depending on what your life is going through as well. So Saturn impacts all those areas. Like I said, Saturn is an activity. It's not a good planet. It's not a bad planet. It's just a planet. It just does its activity. So when it comes to the 12th house, all that Saturn knows is that I'm going to work for a hospital. I'm going to do a lot of charities, or I'm going to work for a charitable institution, and I'm going to become spiritual. I'm going to, some places, worst case scenarios, you might even see that you might even see yourself working in a personal high trafficking industry or sex industries as well, because 12th house is bedroom pleasures. It's also basements, so you might find yourself living in a basement sometimes. I've seen that, experience that in other people's chart. And you might be isolated completely. You don't have access. It's a jail, right? Now, when I say jail or a prison, it doesn't necessarily have to be legal or a physical jail or a physical prison. What it can also mean is a physical jail, a mental prison. So you're stuck, you can't get out of there, and you don't know what to do. So that's basically Saturn. Now, if you're going through the second Sade Sati, which means the second time in your life, the Saturn's going to transit over your moon, and you've started it, and if it's in the 12th house in the second Sade Sati, usually it's said to be that your parents are probably going to suffer a lot, and sometimes you might even lose one of your parents if you have your parents with you, or even not with you, but if you know your parents, and sometimes it might even take away the parents as well. Now, in the first phase, when the Sade Sati goes in the first phase ever in your life, the first time when Saturn goes over your moon, it's said that usually your grandpa, your grandma, or one of your grandparents would usually pass away. When it goes in the second time, it's usually considered that one of your parents will go away as well. it affects one of your parents for sure. And it at least the worst case scenarios where I've seen that the Saturn is not impacting or they have a long life in the chart, then in those cases I've seen that it only gives sickness or isolation or separation from the parents or some kind of issues, but not necessarily take them away. Now, like I said, I mean, you do have to always look at the individual chart predictions. Are you going to live long, or is the parents have a long life, and so on and so forth. If it's the case, then you cannot generally take that position or a stand where you say, oh, but my parents are okay. I'm 72, I'm 52, and my parents are still alive, and I've gone through 2 phases of Sade Sati. Well, what I mean is that it only impacts, or it only has a significant impact on you if your original chart has a lower life for your parents as well. So that's the first thing. So that's the first thing. Second, Saturn is also, sorry, 12th house is also house of losses, and Saturn is activity. So you'll see loss of activity. You will see either you lost your job, or as soon as the Saturn hits, the first thing you'll see is that either you quit, or you were forced to quit, or you had some kind of issue and you just left the job. So that is basically the Saturn, because it's in the house of losses. It's gonna make you lose a job. Now you might say that no, but I have stayed in the same company for 40 years and I've never lost my job. And I'm pretty sure I went through a couple of phases of Sade Sati. Yes, because again, in your original chart, if your Saturn is not giving activities, or there's no frequent changes from the Saturn, you can actually find that out, and I'll make a video about it later on. But if you can see that, okay, there is not going to be a significant impact, then in those cases, what it does is it may make you lose a promotion. It may make you decide that you don't want to get promoted because it involves a transfer of location. Or it might even be like, okay, you started your own business and now you're kind of facing difficulties in the business when the Sarasati happens. And or there, like I said, I mean, there are different ways you can take a look at it as well. So that is basically Saturn transiting over the 12th house. Now, when it goes over the moon, like I said, moon is changes. So again, it brings changes to what? Like I said, the Saturn is a karaka for your career, your job, your prospects, your karma, your activities. You might even get blamed at your workplace. Now, that also is true for the Saturn transiting from the 12th house, because as that's one of the principles of Brigunandinadi. So you also take the 12th house and the second house for the aspect as well. So what it means is that moon, when Saturn is transiting over your 12th house from the moon, it might even put you under wrongful allegations, or you just said something that was misunderstood, or you just come across people who are just trying to put you down and bring you down. Like I said, it's a house of isolation, a house of feeling lonely, house of feeling misunderstood or not understood, and that's why you are going to go through emotional turmoil, because moon is emotions, moon is how you feel, moon is happiness. Now when a planet of sadness goes over the moon, is definitely going to make that moon, or take that some of the happiness away from that native. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of general. Now about me, what happened in my Sade Sati. So there are a lot of things that happened. I brought properties. I've built assets. At the same time, um, I lost my father, who was really really close to me, and it was devastating for me to go over it, and it really took me off for almost about a year. I was not even able to understand what's going on. I cannot expect that this would ever happen. When that happened, what I primarily did is I isolated myself. I kind of stayed away from people, even though they were my friends. Just that was really shocking for me. So I completely got out of my social media. I wasn't looking at my Instagram. I wasn't posting. If I was posting something, it was all before this incident happened of my dad's passing away. I was just taking something, and I stopped Facebook. I stopped any and all social media altogether, and that included YouTube as well. So I just couldn't bring myself to record another video. Having said that, it took me a lot of time, and eventually on 17th of January 2023, the Saturn came over my moon. The feelings are different. I did come out of a really bad phase. I feel like I've never faced. I've gone through Rahu Mahadasha as well, along with the first Sade Sati, but I never felt it so bad. So that's definitely it. I had some issues with my profession as well. I quit my first. I got a promotion, and I was, overly excited, and I was overly ambitious at the time, and I wanted to go out there and achieve more things. So I quit that job even before I got another job, and then the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, it was even bad because there were no jobs in the market. So I had to take small contracts paying lesser than what I would usually charge. Um, so yeah, that was on the financial front, because when Saturn transits the 12th house, it's looking at the second house, and it would make you work for that money as well. So these were the two important things that two or three important things that happened into my Sade Sati. But I thought it's really important that I share my information with you, so this can help you in future to prepare as to what's coming for you in Sade Sati, right? So I would definitely tell you that, put your head down, just wait for your time to go out. There is no particular remedy that works in Saturn Sade Sati. You can definitely, if you're devotional nature, if you're of a devotional nature, then what I would recommend is just make sure you pray to Lord Hanuman every Saturday and a Tuesday. That will definitely help. And say Hanuman Chalisa as well as much as possible. You would see that when your tensions are going away, it's usually when you're started to chant Hanuman Chalisa. For as much as you can. I don't know any of any other remedies, but that's kind of the main remedy of what I can think of. But yeah, that is it for today. And if you have any questions, queries, please post your comments under the comment section under below the video, and please like my videos and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any suggestions for the video as well, I'd be more than happy to do it for you. So yeah, that's about it, and I'll soon be replying all the comments on the previous videos as well. So let's take a look at that later. Take care. Ciao.